there's very little room for us to develop any kind of rationale for us to trade with one another unless we develop capital. In other words, I'm not necessarily born endowed with the ability of better producing a specific good while you are better endowed with producing the other good. The reality is, if I accumulate the capital for this good and you accumulate the capital for that good, I become highly productive in this good and you become highly productive in that good. In other words, what drives comparative advantage and what drives the division of labor is the ability of different parties in a market economy to be able to accumulate capital. So at a simple example, you build a fishing boat and a fishing rod, and that allows you to catch a lot of fish. But I build, arrows that I throw and catch, and traps, and that allows me to catch deer and rabbits. So that's what develops the comparative advantage that allows us to trade with one another. And without capital accumulation, we go back to a very primitive existence wherein I spent all the time trying to catch fish with my own hands and trying to catch rabbits with my own hands, and obviously usually failing miserably. And, if I failed for a few days in a row, I could die and starve. And in that kind of world, there's very little room for you and me to trade with one another. Only when we develop capital and when we accumulate capital does my living standard increase, your living standard increase, and the opportunities for us to trade with one another get amplified to allow us to trade well and gain from that. So these are kind of the basic ideas of how individuals economize. Then the next section of the book discusses economizing in the context of a market economy. So this is, we're not just individuals that are improving the way that we live our lives. Once we live in a situation where each individual is able to accumulate capital and able to trade with one another, once we accept the concept of property rights, again, going back to the individual concepts of economizing. So you work, I respect your right to have property. You respect my right to have property. I develop a capital stock, which I use for production. You develop a capital stock to use for production. And then once we have an extended social order where we trade with a lot of people that do the same thing, we all work and we all respect each other's property, we all accumulate capital, well, that gives us what is called a market economy. And that is our superpower as a human species. That is what separates us from animals. And that's what makes us so powerful. That's what makes us able to defeat all other animals on Earth. This is why lions are much more powerful than us. Gorillas are much more powerful than us. And yet we put them in cages. They don't put us in cages because we have a market economy. We specialize in producing things. We accumulate capital and we get better at economic production over time. And we keep accumulating more capital and increasing our productivity. And that's what makes us so powerful. That's really ultimately the application of our reason to the process of economizing within a social order in which we accept each other's right to property and we accept each other's right to accumulating capital. That's what makes us a super species, essentially. That's what sets us apart from the rest of the animals. And that is what capitalism is. To come back to the punchline, essentially, that's what capitalism is. So people generally, have all kinds of weird definitions of capitalism. And generally today, capitalism just means everything that I don't like for most people who go to universities. But that's not what capitalism is. Capitalism is an extended economic order in which people are free to accumulate capital and own capital. And so that depends on people's ability to save, people's ability to respect each other's property rights. And only when we have that are we able to build a human civilization. And once we start undermining that, once we get to a point where we undermine the right of people to work, the right of people to have property, that's really the big one. Once we start, once we get taken over by that mind bug that says your property is not legitimate, we should not have property. We should not let people have property. We should actually just get rid of the concept of property, or we should take other people's properties and have all the property managed by one person. That's when we destroy that capitalist system. We destroy people's ability to economize individually and increase their capital stock and increase their productivity. And that's when civilization falls apart. And that's why, this is really the problem with socialist economic systems. And that, of course, as you said, you mentioned 20, 30, 40 million people. It's actually probably much more than that. It's probably more than 100 million in the last century or so. But, these people weren't necessarily always just gone down because of dictators. In the mind of your average socialism fan, these people were killed because it wasn't real socialism. It was supposed to be socialism, and then it got taken over by bad guys, and then the bad guys started killing people. So if we just make sure that the good guys take over this time and they don't kill people, then we can have all of the amazing, nice fantasy land of socialism. But the really powerful thing about the Austrian School of Economics, and this is where it, in my opinion, is completely incomparable to all the garbage that is taught at universities, is that it is the only one that offers a clear understanding of what socialism is and a clear critique of why socialist economic systems fail. And it explains what you see in places like Venezuela and the Soviet Union and Cambodia and all of these actual examples of real suffering in socialism as an inevitable economic outcome of a system that undermines people's ability to hold capital. This is what it comes down to. Socialism comes down to the fact that you cannot own capital. Capital goods need to be owned by a government. And the really powerful idea, this is Mises's idea that he's written about exactly 100 years ago, 101 years ago, 1922, he wrote a book called Socialism. And the socialists have never been able to answer his critique. And his critique, most people, this is pretty unfortunate, most people who think of themselves as being enemies of socialism, when they present their critique of socialism, and most socialists who think that there is a critique of socialism, they think it goes down to the issue of incentives. And they think economics is all about incentives. And they think, the reason that socialism fails, or the reason that people think socialism fails, is because you don't get rich under a socialist economic system. So therefore, if you're not going to get rich, why are you going to work hard? Why are you going to take out the trash? Who wants to be the guy who takes out the trash if we're all going to live in the same house, if we're all going to live the same quality of life? Well, everybody wants to have a cushy job in air conditioning, typing on a computer. Nobody wants to take out the trash. Nobody wants to become the brain surgeon. Nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to do anything, as long as you take that reward.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.